Let's put ourselves in the minds of this poor chap, this analyst, who's got to do a sales and profit plan for the launch of a new product. Think of something like a Kindle type device, and poor analyst here has reached for his spreadsheet as usual and just reminded himself that the last spreadsheet he built was extremely tedious. It took a long time, boring to work on, hard work to do. And what was worse is that he made mistakes in that spreadsheet, and management wasn't too pleased with those mistakes. And here is the spreadsheet he built last time. You can go and download this spreadsheet from the link shown here. Over on the left, under the purple columns, we've got the financials for the product. Under the blue headed columns, we've got what's happening to sales from first-time buyers and customers who repurchase to upgrade or replace their product. Under the green area, you've got something on marketing spend and the customers that wins. And we've got the information on consumers and owners over on the right-hand side. And you can see that our analyst has put a couple of charts there summarizing what happened to revenue and profit, and a second chart showing the sources of sales from first-time buyers and repeat sales. So he goes and digs out this old spreadsheet from the last time he did this. And first of all, he's got to figure out how he put this thing together, what are all the relationships in this model, and he's got to figure out where the mistakes came from. And we know that there's research being done on this by all kinds of different bodies. Most corporate spreadsheets have got problems in them and errors in them that are so serious as to make those spreadsheet results actually plain wrong. So, figuring out where the mistakes are in this is pretty important, but also pretty difficult. So, what might Alan Analyst do instead? Well, here is the living business model that he built instead. And you can see down there, you've got exactly the same chart on what happened to sales and profits. The difference here is that diagram shows all of the relationships between all of the elements with numbers on, and I'm showing very few time charts on this particular view of the model. Now that's not really a good idea. We need to see those time charts for the items in this diagram. So let's see how that's done. Well, let's go to this particular section of the model. This shows how current owners multiplied by the repurchase rate give rise to that rising curve, that S-shaped curve for the volume of repeat sales that we're likely to get. I put in a constant repurchase rate here of 5% of owners buying a product again each month. Doesn't have to be constant. A very likely thing we'd do here, for example, would be to release upgrades to the device. And of course, when you release an upgrade, those owners of the first version of the product are very likely to repurchase at a higher rate. So you have a short period of higher repurchase going on before it drops back again to a lower rate. So that's shown as a constant parameter, but it doesn't have to be constant. And down at the bottom, we've got total sales, but we're only going to get there if we add the sales that we expect to get from first-time buyers. But I haven't completed that calculation just yet. So, although this may be unfamiliar, there's nothing mysterious going on here at all. Just think of every item as being like a spreadsheet column with its name in the top cell and all 60 periods values running down the columns below that heading. And think of the arrows here as being like a cell reference. So in the repeat sales calculation, it is linked to the values in the columns for current owners and the repurchase rate. And inside each item is a simple language formula. The formula for repeat sales is current owners multiplied by percent repurchase divided by 100. It's not $1.24 multiplied by $C, $4 divided by 100 or anything mysterious like that. It is a simple language formula. So this analyst's initial model does exactly what the spreadsheet did. The piece in the yellow area at the top there shows how that word of mouth effect works. Current owners who like the product go and tell their friends, or people see other people with the product on the bus or the train, and they say, oh, that looks cool, I think I'll buy one of those. That's how word of mouth is worked out. The green area shows how marketing is driving a win rate as well. Just a side comment, by the way, here. We put arithmetical formulae in these items, but you can also put lookup functions in there. So rather than saying new buyers from marketing is X number per $1,000 that we spend, we could look up the percentage of the remaining customers that we would reach as we raise the marketing expenditure rate. So we can use those lookup functions, which management, by the way, finds very intuitive to do, much more intuitive than looking at a mathematical formula. The blue area on the right there simply adds up those two sources of total sales, and at the bottom we've just got a very simplified version of how to calculate profit there. In practice, of course, there'd be rather more detail in that calculation of operating profit. And notice all across this model, we've got red lines and blue lines on the time charts. The red line is real world data. In this case, it is our targets and our expectation for how sales and profits will grow over time. They're simply numbers that we've put in, and they are aspirations in this case. For the IT support case, the first 18 months of the red lines were what had actually happened to the client growth rate and to the number of staff we had and to the pressure on those staff. And the second part of the period was what we feared might happen if things carried on. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our blue lines, our calculations, to match those red lines. And you can go and see this model and play with it and see what it does. As I say, it does exactly the same thing as the spreadsheet model that our poor analyst had to work with. But in this case, it is completely transparent. There is nothing invisible here about what's going on. There's also a more developed version of the model at the second link, Tech 2 product there, and that includes this threshold effect of affordability. It includes competition with another competitor who's launching a similar product at the same time, and it includes an experience curve cost reduction mechanism. In this model that you're seeing on the screen here, that unit cost reduction has simply been entered by hand. In the second of the models here, that cost reduction is driven by our accumulating sales rate. Now, why do these models just work? Well, they handle some things that go on in the real world in a very explicit, quantified way. I've already explained how all of the stocks in this situation and any situation accumulate and deplete. And you've seen how the interaction between the client win rate and loss rate determined the growth and decline in that IT company's client base. And you see how the hiring and turnover of staff led to the accumulation and depletion of the staff numbers in that case. But they do some other things that are unavoidable in the real world. They handle those interdependencies. That generates feedback, and in good times that feedback can help us accelerate growth. We get that word of mouth thing that we like to get going if we possibly can, and that drives growth. Or we get what's known as balancing feedback that kills growth. And they capture thresholds. There's thresholds all over the place in the business situations that we operate. Same applies with things like price and product functionality. As the price comes down, then it doesn't do very much to sales at all because the product is still simply too expensive. But then you cross that threshold of affordability and then sales take off. And as product functionality improves, it has to be at some minimal level before customers will want to actually buy that product. So we capture those thresholds. And we handle intangibles, those state of mind things like reputation and morale, things like quality related intangibles such as the bugs that we find in software or the reliability of products that we produce. And there are intangibles to do with data and information as well. We can handle those things. Critically, this is not limited to what's going on within the business. We also handle the external interactions. And this sets the method aside, by the way, from typical balanced scorecard approaches, from typical business model approaches. You would think from looking at some of those that there aren't any competitors and there isn't any external market because they simply don't feature in the models at all. Well, in our models they do when they are significant. What this all means is that these models are in a class of their own. There is nothing out there that does what these models can do. They are rigorous, reliable, and quantified. There are no exceptions to the principles I summarized in that chart. Those mechanisms apply in every case. You can't substitute them with something else. There isn't some other way in which you can look at how the business system is working. That is how it's working. They result in templates. When you build a model for a restaurant, for example, it's pretty much the same structure as the model for any other restaurant, whether it's in Australia or Russia or South Africa or wherever. That means that you can replicate that template. The numbers will be hugely different. You know, a fine dining restaurant will be very, very different in the details of the numbers and what they're doing compared with a McDonald's restaurant. And you'll find different sub-templates, if you like. So a high street restaurant will have slightly different characteristics than a community-based restaurant or a roadside restaurant. But you get these templates, which mean that we can generalize from a structure that we know works because we've done it and we've applied it many times before. Pretty similar, by the way, to the way in which SAP and other enterprise resource planning softwares work. They have templates that apply for manufacturing cases, for professional service firm cases, for transportation cases. And the consultants who use those things take those templates and adapt them to the particular company in which they're trying to deploy those ERP systems. Just the same thing applies here. We handle competition. Competition is simply pitching my system against your system. So this may seem like more work, but it's not more work. Doing this, building these living business models, is actually easier, faster, and more reliable than doing what we try to do with those awful spreadsheets. Now, why is that? Well, it's easier, faster, and more reliable because you can see how everything is changing. There's nothing mysterious or hidden going on here. And because everything is joined up, not only can you see how everything is changing, you can see why every change to every item is occurring, driven by changes that are occurring to other items. Errors that you make, whether those errors come from getting the logic wrong or getting the maths wrong, show up instantly. You know, if I'd forgotten to divide the repurchase rate by 100 because it was in percentage terms, I wouldn't have to wait and pore over the numbers to figure out that I'd made that mistake. The picture would show me instantly that I'd made that mistake. So that all means that this seems strange, but you actually have to work pretty hard to make errors in these models. They jump out at you and bite you on the nose. And the last thing that makes these models so easy, fast, and reliable is that a comparison on everything that matters between the calculated charts that the model is working out for you and the real-world charts of data that you've put in, whether that's historical actuals or desired future results. The message here is really very simple. If the calculated lines don't match the real-world lines, it's wrong. Go and figure out where the mistake was that you've made. And because you've got all of the causal pathway mapped out, you can start from the first thing that's going wrong and work back to the thing causing that's going wrong, work back from there to the next thing that's going wrong and the next thing until you find the root cause of your error. Leaders and executives really should understand these models and be able to use them to design the business, to get backing for business initiatives, to run the business on a continuing basis. It's a single integrated view. It breaks down silos. It cuts political friction between different members of the teams. It is genuinely joined up, and it's really easily communicated. People get this really fast. As soon as you start showing them those time charts of things they already understand, they get what the model diagrams are showing, they get what the interconnections mean, and they understand it and can start working with it. And the last reason they should use these models is because they're continually adaptable. Keep putting the updated data in and see what that tells you about the future of the business. Adapt the model if necessary, change the relationships to reflect your best, latest information. And all of that means that every analyst and consultant really should know how to build these models. The spreadsheets that they use are simply not fit for purpose. They cannot do what these models do. In theory, you could simply take all the formulae out of these models and bang them in a spreadsheet, but you couldn't possibly build a model like that in the first place. And even if you did that with the spreadsheet, as we showed with the tech product case, the spreadsheet would be impenetrable. You couldn't figure out what all the connections between all of the columns in the spreadsheet were actually doing. And I hope I've shown you that it is easier, faster, and more reliable to do this than to build those spreadsheet models anyway. So why wouldn't you do it? This encourages collaboration. You're building these models with people. You don't go off into your office and come out 2 days later with this spreadsheet that you discover later on has got errors in it. It encourages collaboration because, frankly, it's quite fun. It's actually enjoyable to watch these models emerge and show you how the real world is behaving. So now you can see the value of these living business models. Do go and check out some things. Go and have a look at our online courses, both self-taught and instructor-led, at sdl.re/courses. Our next running of this in 2017 starts on June the 9th, so go and have a look at those courses. There's a ton of free material on our website, strategydynamics.com. Go and have a look at that. And there's also a lot of videos on different topics and different cases on our YouTube channel. Go look at the LinkedIn group, Strategy Dynamics Network, and there are 1 or 2 Pulse articles on there as well. And my last tip is just do it. Go and try it. There's enough material at those sources there to get you started. So just have a go at it. Get in the water. It's really not as cold as you might fear it is. And by all means, get in touch with us if you need to. So thank you very much for your time and your attention. I very much hope that you found it useful. I hope if you're a senior leader or executive that you're persuaded that you should understand these models and learn how to use them. And I hope if you're an analyst or a consultant that you'll go figure out how to actually build these models. You'll enjoy it, so have a go at that as well.